Are you brave enough to hear about a terrifying beast that caused widespread panic and destruction in South Asia during the early 20th century? The Champawat tiger, responsible for spreading fear throughout the area for 7 years, was notorious for preying on humans with merciless efficiency. Join me as we explore a tragic episode in the history that gave birth to long-standing folklore that struck fear into the hearts of future generations. Stay tuned to find out how veteran hunter Jim Corbett finally took on the Champawat Tigress, earning the nickname Shaytan, which means devil, and becoming one of the greatest stories of man versus beast in history. But be warned, the story is not for the faint of heart. A dangerous adversary awaits in the cover of darkness somewhere in the heart of the Indo-Nepalese wilderness. This terrifying beast, also known as the Champawat Tiger, was responsible for spreading fear throughout the area for a period of 7 years by preying with merciless efficiency on humans who were unaware of its presence. As a result of its murderous spree, 436 people lost their lives, making it the only known feline to have been responsible for the deaths of such a staggering number of people in the course of a single attack of violence. This tragic episode in history gave birth to a long-standing folklore that struck fear into the hearts of future generations. The Bengal tiger became recognized as a terrifying danger to the South Asian region during the early decades of the 20th century. These magnificent beasts were responsible for widespread panic and destruction because they had a propensity for attacking secluded villages and going after solitary travelers, farmers, and groups of women and children. They would appear out of nowhere in thickets and ambush their victims with lethal accuracy before vanishing back into the darkness while dragging their victims along with them. It is possible that the absence of the Champawat tiger's typical prey, such as elk and deer, has contributed to the length and severity of the 7-year killing spree. It is speculated that the tiger's inability to find suitable prey led to its hunting humans instead of other animals. The foreign soldiers that had been trained to deal with dangerous wildlife in South India, but they were no match for the fierce Champawat Tigress. The Tigress, who was notorious for her ambush strategies, would launch attacks without warning, leading to an increase in the number of fatalities. The authorities of Nepal were forced to adjust their plan and came to the conclusion that they should drive the tigress toward the border with India. They did this in the hope that she would find new hunting grounds and leave the villagers in Nepal alone. In order to attack the tigress and force her to flee into Indian territory beyond the Sarda River, soldiers, local volunteers, and poachers formed multiple groups. The tigress' reign of terror in Nepal, which lasted for 4 years, came to an end as a result of a successful collaborative effort. However, the Champawat Tigress did not stop her murderous rampage in the small town of Champawat, which is located in the Kumaon district of the Uttarakhand state in the north of India. The terrified villagers had no choice but to remain inside their homes as they awaited the arrival of Sir Edward James Corbett, who was thought to be the only person who could stop the tigress from continuing her rampage. Jim Corbett, a veteran hunter and a former army officer, was called in by the British government of Uttarakhand to deal with a man-eating beast that was wreaking havoc in the area. The beast was causing a lot of damage. In spite of the fact that Corbett had extensive experience hunting tigers throughout India, he had never encountered a challenge quite like the Champawat Tigress, a man-eating feline that had shaken the nation and earned the nickname Shaytan, meaning devil or Satan in Hindi. In 1907, during the 7th year of the man-reign eater of terror, a group of women from a nearby village ventured into perilous and muddy pathways of Kumaon in order to gather firewood and leaves for their households and their livestock. They were completely unaware that the Champawat Tigress was following them around. Purnika Devi, who was 16 years old at the time, was sitting on the thick branch while a stiletto slicer in a hand, while the tigress had her in her sights for the purpose of setting up an ambush. The howling wind and the woman's chatter muffled the tigress's subtle footsteps as she wove through some thick patches of grass and got into position to attack Purnika, just a few feet away from her. Purnika was being pursued by a dangerous Bengal tigress, who lunged at her with extraordinary accuracy from behind. The other women in attendance were rendered speechless by the tigress's vengeful grunts, which sent shivers down their spines as they watched in the helpless horror and shock. Purnika was unable to evade the predator's dexterity and speed despite her desperate attempts to flee by sliding down the tree. Finally, the tigress brought her to the ground with a powerful swipe of her paw, and then she proceeded to savage her face with its sharp teeth, breaking her jaws in the front of her friend's horrified eyes. The women screamed, hollered, and hurled stones at the tigress as they helplessly watched in the branches of the trees. This momentarily caused the tigress to stop what she was doing and growl at the woman. However, the tigress dealt Premika her fatal blow in a flash bite, biting into the vertebrae that were located in the space between her neck and her spine. This caused Premika's life to come to an abrupt end. Premika uttered one last agonizing scream before finally giving up and becoming the 435th victim of the man-eating Champawat. The tigress then dragged Premika's lifeless body through the dense woodland as her friends ran back to their home as quickly as they could, sobbing and screaming in horror the entire way back. Premika had been killed by the tigress. After Premika was killed, the hunter Jim Corbett was given the mission of tracking down the infamous Champawat Tigress. He grabs his reliable rifle and follows Premika's friends as they lead him to the location of the attack on Premika. While he was searching for the tigress in the dense forest, he came across the remains of Premika. Her hand was still attached to its radial bone, and there were pieces of flesh hanging from it. Corbett has made the decision to proceed with the search for Premika's body on his own, in spite of the unfavorable conditions. Corbett finally finds Premika's heavily mutilated carcass after hours of searching for it. Pieces of her flesh are still covering her face at the time of his discovery. He turns around when he hears movement in the darkness and is confronted by a Bengal tigress that has emerged from the bush. He is aware that the tigress is most likely still present in the area. She walks up to him without showing any signs of fear, while Corbett readies his rifle. And confronted by a tiger that is unfazed by the presence of an armed hunter, Corbett realizes the animal is assessing him as potential food for himself. In retaliation, he raises the rifle and fires a shot, but the nimble tigress manages to step aside the bullet and flees into the night. Corbett is aware that he is dealing with a peculiar creature that is motivated by an unquenchable desire to consume human beings. He is aware that the tiger is not your typical apex predator. Rather, it is one that preys on humans. Corbett makes his way back to camp, where he has immediately begun to formulate a strategy that is more effective in neutralizing the danger. Corbett gathers a group of volunteers and leads an assault to confront the tigress after hearing the next day that the man-eater had killed another person in the village of Pali. The plan is for them to lure the tiger out of the thick Champawat woods into an open area where Corbett can take her out with a well-placed shot. Jim Corbett, an experienced big-game hunter, was in charge of a group of approximately 300 volunteers who were equipped with various noise-making instruments who were stationed atop a small hill with a view of the dense Champawat forest. Their mission was to find the tigress that had been prowling around the area and causing mayhem. They made a deafening racket by shouting and banging on the drums as they charged towards the tigress's territory with Corbett and the helm. The tigress was compelled to reveal her identity and immediately ran in the direction of the clearing, as was expected. And the tigress was in the shooting range. Corbett, who was accompanied by a local police sheriff, fired 2 shots, the first of which struck her in the face and the second of which struck her in the abdomen. Despite this, the tigress did not submit at any point. Because of the tigress's charge, Corbett was unable to reload his weapon in time before she reached him. The tigress was just meters away from Corbett when the local police sheriff fired a shot, hitting the tigress in the left foot just 20 meters away from Corbett. Corbett was terrified and saw his life flash before his eyes as the tigress approached. This was the only time that Bengal tigress showed any sign of giving up, and after an estimated 436 kills, the man-eater of Champawat was finally slain after she had been hunting humans for so long. During the course of the autopsy on the tiger, it was determined that the upper canine on her left side had been fractured. It was determined that an unsuccessful attempt at poaching was likely the cause of injury. The results of further research led researchers to the conclusion that the tiger's injury was not only hindered her ability to hunt the prey she normally does, but also triggered a response that is thought to be characteristics of tigers that is motivated by vengeance. As we wrap up this video, we can't help but feel a sense of horror and awe at the terrifying events that unfolded during the Champawat Tiger's reign of terror. The story of this man-eating feline serves as a haunting reminder of the dangers that exist in the wild and the importance of respecting the power and unpredictability of nature. Despite the Champawat Tiger's gruesome actions, the story also highlights the resilience and ingenuity of humans in the face of danger. The collaborative efforts of soldiers, volunteers, and hunters ultimately put an end to the tiger's reign of terror and prevented further loss of life. We hope that this video has shed some light on the little-known piece of history and has left you with a newfound appreciation for the majesty and danger of big cats in the wild. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you at the next one.